Good morning, everyone. I This is not a live video that I thought that I would be doing. I didn't plan on doing it. I woke up this morning scrolling through social media like a lot of people do, and we at witsup had posted that black square that you're seeing everywhere with the hashtag Blackout Tuesday. Actually, I'd posted it using the hashtag Black Lives Matter, and then did some extra research and realised that that was the wrong thing to do. Just so you know, I'm on Instagram and on Facebook at the moment because I want to share my thoughts on the different platforms that we've got. So yeah, I'd realised that posting the black square with hashtag Black Lives Matter was incorrect, because essentially that hashtag is being used to spread images and stories and information about the Black Lives Matter movement. So we deleted our post from last night and reposted this morning. And I recommend that if you too have posted a black square using the hashtag Black Lives Matter, delete it and repost using the hashtag Blackout Tuesday. Now, the Blackout Tuesday, from what I understand, I've spent a lot of time in the last sort of 3 or 4 days researching, listening to podcasts, reading some books, which I will get to in a second. There's a book that I really want to share with you all in the hopes that you too will go out and purchase that book. But spending a lot of time going to places on the World Wide Web where I can learn a little bit more about the Black Lives Matter movement. And it's interesting. I don't always prepare for our live sort of chats and shows, and I've made so many notes wanting to talk about things here on witsup, and I think that's why I've been hesitant to talk about anything on our platform, for fear of not saying the right thing, for being another white person speaking up about something that she truly doesn't fully understand. But I am doing my best to educate myself. And the way I sort of look, when I woke up this morning, the way I looked at it was, we have a platform here at witsup. That platform at its very core started from an inequality that I saw in our very privileged, highly populated by white people sport of triathlon. But nearly a decade ago, that's what I recognised, that there was an inequality between coverage for male triathletes and female triathletes, and that's really what it came down to at the end of it. It was that inequality, and I don't want to compare the inequality of women's sports coverage to the Black Lives Matter movement, but it's something that I do understand, and I'm trying to use the things that I've learnt from that, and from launching a platform that is witsup, and using that to help educate myself about the Black Lives Matter movement. Like I said, I've made a whole bunch of notes. This is going to be messy, but fuck, the world is messy. The world is very messy right now. This is not a preaching thing. This is I'm a white female, middle-aged female. I don't have the right to preach about the Black Lives Matter movement. But what I do have a right to do is use my platform to help share my learnings, to help. Well, I guess that's the main thing, is I'm listening and I'm learning, and I'd like to share what I am learning. I've just felt really uneasy not talking about it, because I was scared of, like I said before, of saying the wrong thing, or again appearing to be another white person out there who's talking about this without the full education of the Black Lives Matter movement. So bear with me. It's hard to navigate and to figure it out, but I just kept coming back to the fact that we have a platform. At our very core, what we stand for is equality. And the Black Lives Matter movement hasn't just arrived on our doorstep in the last couple of weeks. It's been there for a very long time, and I have not done enough to educate myself about it. So here's where I want to get on to what I am doing, and this book is a brilliant place to start. Sarah True actually gave me this book in Cairns last year, so nearly a year ago. A year ago, this book has been sitting on my shelf and I haven't read it. Not because I was scared to read it, not because I didn't want to read it, but because I didn't make the time to read it and educate myself. Even though I said I'm passionate to learn, I want to learn. Life has just gotten too busy. I've allowed life to get too busy to put in the time to read this book. I did a bit of research, and also I must say I haven't finished this book yet. I've just started, but it is. I've done the research about it, and well, it's a New York Times bestseller. But also, this is a book that a lot of people recommend reading, particularly white folk, obviously. And I want to read what's on the back, and there's a couple of words that resonated with me and helped me realize what's been holding me back from having this conversation. I'll just read this whole part. What is white fragility? In this groundbreaking and timely book, anti-racist educator Robin DiAngelo deftly illuminates the phenomenon of white fragility, referring to the defensive moves that white people make when challenged racially. White fragility is characterized by emotions such as anger, fear, and guilt, and by behaviors including argumentation and silence. These behaviors in turn function to reinstate white racial equilibrium and prevent any meaningful cross-racial dialogue. In this in-depth examination, DiAngelo explores how white fragility develops, how it protects racial inequality, and what we can do to engage more constructively. So a few things from this. The words that really resonated with me, and I guess with struggling to use this platform to have a discussion, was guilt. I feel guilty for not educating myself enough prior to this. I feel really guilty to the point that in the last few days, it's really had me questioning myself about a lot of things, which is a good thing because it's making me want to learn to be better. So it has driven me somewhere because I've recognized it as guilt. Fear also resonated a bit, but not in the same way that they mean it here, but just fear in terms of stepping up and using our platform. Kirsty Baxter's just said timely on the last day of Reconciliation Week. Absolutely. The other word that resonated with me was silence. So I'm just losing my spot, including argumentation and silence. Argumentation, I'm definitely not arguing. I'm listening and learning. But silence is where I was stuck because I was struggling to speak up. And I don't want to be silent anymore. I want to share. I want to use this platform to be better community, to help. The witsup community is a fantastic community. It's a tight community. It's a community that wants to support one another, and I feel like that's where we can really utilize this community for good, for learning, for educating each other. So this book, I highly recommend. It's a great place to start, at least anyway. What I'm going to do also at the end of this is just maybe leave a few links so that you can find where to source any of the information. I did look up that this book, what I found actually, that there's a lot of books that are missing locally here in Melbourne, because I want to get some books right now, but so many have sold out, which I guess is a good thing. But it means there's probably going to be a bit of a backlog in terms of ordering books online. Still, obviously, do it. But I know this book for sure is also available on Kindle. I don't use Kindle, so you'll have to figure that one out. But I did quickly look it up, and it is available on Kindle. The other thing that this book at the end of it does, actually, and I might even leave some of these, is they've given some really good resources for continuing education. And one of the things that just popped out straight away was on Netflix. We're all on Netflix. Well, a lot of us are on Netflix at the moment. I haven't watched this yet, but if it comes from this book, then I'm pretty sure I can recommend it. 13th is a documentary on Netflix. I had a look. It is available here in Australia as well. So maybe use that if you're not so much of a book reader. Use that as an education tool for yourself. Like I said earlier, I've got so many notes because I wanted to make sure I covered things, and there's just, yeah. The other thing that I'm trying to do at the moment, and I firmly believe, and it's something that I believe not just with Black Lives Matter and white fragility, it's trying to educate Frankie. That is something I can control within my household. That's something I can do tomorrow. It's something I can continue to do forever. And so what I'm doing with Frankie is I've ordered some books for her that can help educate her. And to be honest, it's probably going to help to educate me as well. There are books available from anywhere from, I think, from 12 months up until 12 years, 15 years or what have you, that are recommended kids books. Again, I'll leave a link in the description of, if you're watching on Instagram, jump onto Facebook and I'll leave links on Facebook. And from what I understand, from what I've learnt, is that racism and recognizing that there are differences or what have you start at such a young age, and it is our duty as parents to educate our kids on those certain things. And from what I've been reading, they say it can happen from 6 months when kids are recognizing differences in so many different things. So that's something that I want to be really aware of. So I've ordered those books. Again, I'll leave a link in the description. I also joined a Patreon site where that is what there's like 50 kids books that they've given us a list. It's costing me $1 a month, I think it is. To follow that platform. I'm going to leave a link in the description for that as well, and highly recommend that you check that out too. I don't want to just take all of their information and share that for free. Information shouldn't be free, this kind of information, so we can support them. So I'll leave a link in the description for that too. I did search, I think, every Melbourne bookstore, and all of those books are sold out, all the books that I wanted. Again, hopefully that's a good thing. But then, I don't know, it could potentially be a bad thing in that they didn't have very many in stock to begin with. But order online. It's just going to take 2-3 weeks, depending on the postal service and what's happening with COVID globally at the moment. There's just going to be a delay, but it is definitely something you can do today. Step towards educating yourself. Mel Saltil has just said that Lauren Fleshman has also recommended a book. We'll send the details. Thank you. That would be fantastic. On to a couple of things that I've noticed. And again, it's not that I've been scared to comment. It's just that I've wanted to make sure again that I'm educated a little bit better before I comment. And I think I'm getting there. But the response to Black Lives Matter, when you see people saying, but all lives matter, no one is saying that all lives don't matter. It's just that currently, and actually to be honest, for many, many, many years, it's the Black lives that it's the Black lives that matter because they're the ones who have been oppressed. What we've seen in the last week, they're the ones that have been murdered. And so that's why they matter. And this one, just to use my own sort of example and experience in trying to understand, when we launched witsup, and still probably weekly, I get this question. Well, when are you going to launch mitsup? What about men in triathlon? And I'm like, you just don't get it. It's not witsup isn't about excluding men. It's not even about men. It's about women in the sport. And if you look at any kind of study, women still only get about 3% of coverage in sport, looking at traditional forms of media. I think here in Australia, in the newspapers, it's still something like 3 or 4% coverage in comparison to men's sport. So that's why we have a platform for women in sport. And again, I'm not comparing witsup to the Black Lives Matter movement, but it's a way that I can maybe use our platform to help explain certain things and to educate myself as well. So I actually, I'm losing track of social media platforms. I'm not too sure if I posted it on witsup or on Steph Hansen, but there's a great cartoon that I found, and it's of a thanks Gabe Manor for always tuning in and supporting as well. He's just sending a few notes on Instagram. This cartoon is of a guy who's hosing down his house. Next to his house is a house that's on fire. And someone says to him, mate, what are you doing? That's where the house is on fire next door. You should probably be hosing that down. And his response is, yeah, but all houses matter. He's like, yep, absolutely, all houses matter, but that one's on fire. So maybe direct the hose to that one. Yeah, but I'm just going to do this because what happens if eventually my house is on fire? Sure, when your house is on fire, we'll make sure that we point the hose at your house, but it's not. So let's maybe look after the house that's on fire. And this goes on. I think really to drill in the point. And then the kicker in the end as well is the person who's hosing down his house that is not on fire says, well, why doesn't my neighbor, why can't he look after his house if it's on fire? And he said, well, he was inside the house and he's now died. And I feel like that really, and it shouldn't be dumbed down, but I feel like sometimes it has to be to really drill home the message. Again, it's not about saying that all lives don't matter. That's not the point. It's about focusing some efforts and learning towards the Black Lives Matter movement, because they're the ones who need us as a community, as a global community, to step up where it counts. Again, I don't want this to be a preaching thing. I'm a white, middle-aged female of privilege. That's the other thing. White privilege doesn't mean that you're, driving around in a Mercedes. That's not what that means. Look it up. I certainly am not loaded with money and living the high life. That's not what it's about. But I am privileged purely based on the color of my skin. That's what it's about. So if you get offended by the terms white privilege and white fragility, then you are part of the problem. You are part of the systematic problem, and it is really time to educate yourself. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just going back to some of my notes. I think I've covered what I wanted to say. We have, at witsup, have paused our content. We did have some articles that we wanted to publish today, but I've decided not to publish anything until the end of Blackout Tuesday. That doesn't mean that we just stop thinking about the Black Lives Matter movement. It just means that for that period of time, that is all we want to talk about. And then we will go back to posting our content as usual, but we'll continue to be educating ourselves, continue to learn and share, I guess, those learnings as well. On top of that, I hope that you're all doing okay. This is obviously a very tough, weird time. Here in Australia, I feel like, and probably New Zealand as well, I guess we can speak on behalf of Australia and New Zealand. We are so far removed from the protests, some of which have turned into rioting. So I feel like we're lucky in that respect. But I've been speaking to friends who live over there in certain places in the United States, and someone sent me a message the other day that they live on the 25th floor in a place where there's been, unfortunately, rioting, and the amount of tear gas that's being used is seeping up and in through windows on the 25th floor. That's how much tear gas is being used in certain areas. So to everyone out there, I hope you're doing okay. I hope that you are healthy. I hope that you and your family are as okay as possible. If you have the opportunity, please make sure that you make the decision to educate yourself today, in the hopes that we can create a better tomorrow. That sounds so wanky. I've probably heard that somewhere. But I mean it. It's I don't know what else to say. I don't even know how to sign off on this, because usually I'm the, all right, happy go lucky, sign off type of thing. But yeah, how do you, well, I guess the point I was going to say, how do you stop a conversation like this? And I guess the point is that you don't stop the conversation. Stein Troy's actually said we need to maintain this in our home soil 26th of January. So what he's referring to is Australia Day, which a lot of people don't want. Actually, a lot of people, but not enough people, I should say, don't want Australia Day to be the 26th of January, because essentially we are celebrating the day that white people came in and took this land from the Indigenous. So even that, now I'm not too sure if Indigenous is the correct term, and that's my bad for not educating myself enough. And that is something that I will now go and educate myself on as well, because I do live in Australia, and that's something I need to be better at too. Thanks for bringing that to our attention. Kirsty Baxter has also actually left a comment here as well, which gives us a link to what is reconciliation. I will add that into, I'll have a read of it and then I'll add that into the description as well. For those of you who have hung in there during all of my ramblings, thank you. I do hope that you're doing okay. Look after yourselves, look after each other, educate yourselves, and let's do what we can do. Do what you can do today. Today, go and buy this book. Whether it's online, the Kindle version. I think you might struggle to actually get a hold of this book in Melbourne. I'm saying today because I've had a look and it is sold out from what I understand. But please jump online and order it. This is a fantastic place to start. Like I said, I've only sort of just started reading it. There's so much more to learn, but already it's opening my mind up. And that is one of the main reasons why I wanted to come on here today and share this with you. Sarah True gave this to me. I remember sitting in a coffee shop with her in Cairns discussing race and what racism is. And I couldn't tell you how we got onto the topic. But I thank her for doing that. And I feel like this is one of those books that this particular one will get passed on to the next person. So when I finish with it, I plan to pass this on to the next person. That is something small that I can do, but it's something. Okay. Look after yourselves, look after your family, and I'll see you at some stage.